Good morning. All right. Well, our theme for the year has been building godly families, And we've spent a lot of time over the course of the year talking about the first union in creation. And if you remember, that was the individual man and God. So we spent a lot of time talking about, no matter what your relationship status, no matter who you are or where you are, God expects you to faithfully serve Him individually wherever you are. And that's going to undergird all of our future Building Godly Families lessons. That is still going to be the case. But now we're going to start transitioning to talking about the second union in creation, which is between the man and the woman in Genesis 1 through 3, between the man and the woman. And to do that over the next several weeks, as Adam just alluded us to, we're going to talk about the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs. So if you will, go ahead and start turning over to Song of Songs or Song of Solomon chapter 1. And there are just so many wonderful principles about courtship, about marriage, about choosing the right spouse, about marital intimacy. There's all kinds of wonderful principles in the Song of Songs that we're going to be looking at. And it's really appropriate for our theme for the year because Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, it is not the modern idea of falling in love the way that the majority of our rom-coms will show us. It's very much the idea of building love and building godly families. And so it's going to be a really good study, I hope, for all of us. I'm really excited to get through it. This morning specifically, we're going to talk about a couple principles about godly romantic interest. And so while you're turning over to Song of Solomon 1, or if you're already there, let's talk a little bit about the context of this book. There's really no other book in the Bible quite like the Song of Solomon. If you've ever read through it, I don't know, maybe this is just me. Have you read through it and then said, what am I supposed to do with that? Why is this even in here? What is this about? Okay, I got some chuckles, so I know I'm not the only one. Thank you. That really means a lot to me. And I think maybe one of the reasons for that is God may only be mentioned directly maybe one time in the Song of Songs, and referenced or alluded to maybe 3 times. So it's kind of like, what do we do with this? Why is this here? And this song, I believe, is primarily a book all about the romantic and sexual love between a husband and a wife, and really glorifies that idea. So it might seem strange that it's in our Bibles. Now, I do want to talk about this. Over the years, we're several thousand years away here from Song of Solomon being written. And over the years, there have been many different ways of interpreting or treating the Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon. One of those, we don't talk about it. You ignore it. We don't know what to do with it. So you just don't talk about it. And specifically over the course of the years, as people who followed Jesus, there were people who called themselves Christians who said marriage was wrong, who said marriage was bad, or who would say it's more spiritual if you don't get married and you become a celibate hermit. Or maybe people like, I don't know, the Puritans is one that's sticking out to me right now, but people who kind of had an ideological difference with what the Song of Songs is going to reveal. So we don't talk about it. We just don't talk about it. We leave it alone. And maybe even in our fellowship. I mean, have you ever done a Bible class on Song of Songs, or maybe a sermon series on Song of Songs? I don't know if I've definitely never preached one. I don't know if I've ever sat through one either. It's like, we don't know what to do with it, so just ignore it entirely. But another way of interpreting Song of Songs or Song of Solomon has been that it's primarily, and this is really important, that it's primarily an allegory for the relationship of God with His people. That's the primary message of Song of Songs. And this interpretation has really been the preferred method for those who were celibate hermits or people like the Puritans. And the problem with that is, I think as we go through Song of Songs, if that's the true primary meaning, there's some things we're going to be really uncomfortable with. And especially every man in the room is going to be very uncomfortable with several parts of the Song of Songs if that's the primary message of Song of Songs. And it's really funny. I encourage you, over the course of us going through Song of Solomon, go back and read some of the Puritan commentators or the celibate hermits, because there are sections that are just undoubtedly talking about physical marital intimacy. Undoubtedly, that's what's being talked about. And you can just see them squirming in their chairs, and it can't be talking about that. And so it's actually really funny. I believe, and the approach that I'm going to take as we go through the Song of Songs, is that primarily it is a poetic description of the ideal romantic and sexual love between a husband and a wife. Now, there's definitely going to be analogies that we can make because God, the Holy Spirit, through the scriptures, uses the analogy of a husband and wife to describe his relationship with his people. But I don't think that's the primary message of this book itself. And it's really wonderful. And I'm really excited to dig into it. Now, the genre of this book is poetry. So that's going to change the way that we read some of these things. The genre is poetry. And the format or the structure of the song is really interesting. Because it's not historical narrative, we don't get an exact timeline and exact details of every literal thing that happened. It's more like a photo album. That's why I put this sort of Polaroids up here. It's more like a photo album. You get these snapshots at different periods of time, but as you flip through those snapshots, you see this progression of a relationship that builds toward marriage, that builds toward all the wonderful things that we're going to see in this song. And so we see the relationship progress. It's kind of like scrolling someone's Facebook feed or a social media page. You see the pictures and you see those snapshots over time, and you can see sort of their story unfold. And it's a wonderful, wonderful song. I'm excited to get through that. And so with that, let's start in just verse 1. Just verse 1 this morning. Song of Solomon, Song of Songs, verse 1. The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Now, verse 1 tells us plainly that this is the Song of Songs. Think about the phrasing of that. That's really important. Think about what we call Jesus all the time. He's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. What are we saying when we say he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords? He's the greatest king of any of the kings that have ever existed. He's the greatest Lord of any of the lords that have ever existed. So the claim right out the gate in Song of Songs is, this is the greatest song of all of the songs that have ever been written. And this song is not primarily a song that is direct praise to God himself. Is that interesting to anybody? That's fascinating to me, and especially because God's maybe only directly mentioned once, alluded to maybe 3 times. It's interesting. Why is this included here? It's really fascinating to me. So then we get to Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Now your translation might say Solomon's Song of Songs or Solomon's most excellent love song. And almost every single modern translation attributes this song to be written by Solomon. I do want to come out and say there are other people who believe that Solomon is not the writer, but this is just written in the style or in the format of Solomon. That may be the case. That's not where I am, and so I'm not going to teach it that way, but maybe that's the case. But if this is Solomon who writes the Song of Songs, which glorifies the ideal romantic and sexual love between a husband and wife, does that raise any red flags for anybody? When you think about Solomon writing about the ideal relationship of one man and one woman for one lifetime. I hope it does. Because back in 1 Kings 11, we're told that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Yeah, I saw about 4 people just turn to their spouse and whisper something to them. So that's a little icky, isn't it? I saw this guy online. He actually crunched some numbers, and I thought this was fascinating. Just for the 700 wives, if Solomon were to get married every single weekend with no breaks, every single weekend, it would take 14 years to marry 700 women. That doesn't even include the concubines or taking a break or getting to know someone better. So can we take anything in the Song of Songs seriously if that guy wrote it? I mean, those are legitimate questions that we should be asking as we look at this. And there's a couple of suggestions for Solomon, if he's the writer and when he wrote it or how he wrote it, that will help us in understanding that. One, maybe Solomon wrote this very early in his life, before he started marrying people for political alliances and before he started, getting into all these relationships. And maybe this is talking about a very literal relationship that he had with somebody very early on in his life. Or two, I start to lean this way. Two, maybe Solomon is writing this later in his life as an older man. And he's looking back on his life, looking back at his 1,000 women, and he realizes that he got it so wrong. And as he's looking back and he knows that he got it wrong, he writes the greatest song of songs to ever be written that glorifies what the ideal is. One man, one woman for one lifetime. Now, there's a couple of passages that might support that, and just for time's sake, I'm going to put them up on the screen. And one of them is in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. I love Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is written by Solomon as as an older man, looking back after trying everything in his life and then coming to conclusions about what's fulfilling and what's satisfying. And in Ecclesiastes 9:9, he writes, enjoy life with the woman, your translation might say, the wife whom you love, all the days of your fleeting life which he's given you under the sun. For this is your reward in life and in your toil in which you've labored under the sun. So again, Ecclesiastes, we at least have a really good idea. That's Solomon as an older man looking back. He's tried everything, chapter 2 and chapter 3. He tries everything, including his 1,000 women. And by the time we get to chapter 9, his conclusion is, what's actually satisfying and fulfilling, what's a reward from God is you enjoy life with the one woman of your life all the days of your life. With your wife, just one woman, all the days of your life, which Solomon didn't do. He tried everything else. But looking back, he says, this is much better. This is the much better ideal. Another one is in Proverbs chapter 5. And this is the wisdom of Solomon here in Proverbs 5. And in verse 18, he says, let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. So this is more of Solomon's wisdom literature. And he exalts rejoicing in the one wife of your youth. And specifically in that context, he's talking about don't turn aside to any other women. You stay with the one wife of your youth all the days of your life. So where I am with this right now is that Song of Solomon is written by Solomon, maybe later in life, looking back on his life, having tried everything with his 1,000 women, and he regrets it. And so he writes the most beautiful Song of Songs to glorify the ideal. One man, one woman, for one lifetime. And if anything, Solomon being the writer adds greater credibility to this because he tried it. He tried it the wrong way with 1,000 women. And he says, this is the ideal, which is God's ideal. And that brings us to the first point that I want to talk about this morning. Godly romantic interest. Now, the first principle about godly romantic interest. It's not looking for multiple sexual partners. It is not looking for polygamy. Godly romantic interest is not you marry someone as long as you're attracted to them and then you ditch them and go get somebody else. Godly romantic interest is looking for God's design from the beginning. One man, one woman for one lifetime. And this is what Solomon, who tried it the wrong way with 1,000 women, he looks back and he wishes he'd done all along. Now, our culture today pushes us so hard, doesn't it? Every commercial, you drive by billboards on the way here, it pushes us so hard. Hey, the more sexual partners that you have, the happier you're going to be, the more fulfilled you're going to be, and the better you're going to feel about yourself. And I don't know if anybody in the room has had 1,000 sexual partners. Solomon did. He tried it, and he looks back and he says, that ain't it. And Song of Solomon, he's going to raise up the ideal, which is God's design from the beginning. One man, one woman for one lifetime. So we need to learn the wisdom from the man who tried it and not try it ourselves. Learn the wisdom from him. Okay, now as we get into some of the love song, we're just in verse 1. Isn't this amazing? As we get into this love song, I do want to make a note about how the text itself is divided up. There are a lot of differences from translation to translation that will show differences in who is speaking. Now, in the original Hebrew, we can usually tell who's being spoken to because there are masculine or feminine forms of words that are being used. So, okay, feminine words being used there, the woman's being spoken to. Masculine word here, the man is being spoken to. What's difficult is, in the original Hebrew, there are no markers about who is the one speaking. So we can be confident about who's being spoken to, but we really have to rely on the context very heavily to see who is the one speaking. The woman's being spoken to, but maybe it's the daughters of Jerusalem. Maybe it's the man here. Maybe there's a narrator who's talking here. So with that, if you have a Pew Bible there that's different than your translation, you ought to just take a look. There's probably a difference on the very first page of who is speaking. And so study it for yourself. I might have it broken up just a little bit differently than what it says in your translation. Come to your own conclusion. And so for these lessons, I'm going to use the Christian Standard Bible, the CSB, just because generally speaking, I like the way it breaks it up. Okay, with all of those notes and sidebars aside, let's get into it. This is so good. Let's take a look at the first snapshot in sort of this photo album of this Song of Songs, this love story here. So let's start in verse 2, and I'm going to try and say who I believe is the one speaking. So verse 2, it's the young maiden, it's the Shulamite, it's the woman. Oh, that he would kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, For your caresses are more delightful than wine. The fragrance of your perfume is intoxicating. Your name is perfume poured out. No wonder young women adore you. Take me with you. Let's hurry. Oh, that the king would bring me to his chambers. The daughters of Jerusalem then speak, or the chorus here. We will rejoice and we will be glad in you. We will celebrate your caresses more than wine. Then back to the Shulamite woman, the young maiden. It is only right that they adore you. Now, in this first snapshot, this first little photo that we get here, we see a picture of who the king is according to the woman. We see the maiden, the Shulamite, that's the young woman. And in this first snapshot, we see that she longs for the man. There's a leadership role of the man, and we see the character of the man. So, she comes right out and says it, doesn't she? The Song of Songs, which belongs to Solomon. Oh, that he would kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, right? She comes right out and says it. Oh, that he would kiss me. That's what she wants. She likes what she sees, and she wants some physical contact with him. She likes what she sees. That's what she wants from him. And she says, your caresses are more delightful than wine. She's attracted to him, and she wants to have physical contact with him right away. She's very bold about what she wants, but also notice this, she's not being overly forward. She's not the one who's going after him or forcing it to happen. She wants him to kiss her. And so we do see this boldness and this strength of passion that the Shulamite woman has for the king, and yet also this submissiveness and willingness to let him be the one who leads and not to be overly forceful in any kind of way. Look at verse 3. He smells good in verse 3. The king smells good. His oils, his fragrance are intoxicating. But more than just some kind of physical smell, he's not wearing Axe body spray, but more than the physical smell, she praises him for his character. She praises him for his reputation. The king's name, it says, is like perfume poured out. Or what's the other way it says? Purified oil that is poured out. It's not just that she likes what she sees. It's not just that he smells good. It's not just that she likes the sound of his name. But his name, his essence, his character, his reputation is like a fragrant, pleasing, nice-smelling aroma. When his name is brought out to somebody, his character, his reputation is such that it's delightful. It's like a sweet smell to them. He has a good reputation. And so everything about the king is attractive. Everything is. They like what's on the outside, but even more than that, they like the inner character, they like his reputation, they like his essence. And so, she's not the only one who notices. The young maiden, the Shulamite, she's not the only one who notices. Look at the end of verse 3. It says, no wonder young women adore you. I love that. Your translation might say, therefore the maidens love you. She's not the only one who sees how attractive this guy is. And it's not just on the outside. It's because of his character and his reputation. He has all kinds of good qualities that are not just attractive to the young Shulamite, but to all of the ladies there. And so in verse 4, she wishes that he would take her with him and run, your translation might say, or hurry. It's almost childlike, she wants to be taken by the hand and let's go run outside and play. Very innocent, very sweet. That's what she wants. And with the same innocent, childlike joy at the end of verse 4, oh, that the king would take me to his chambers. Now, they're not married yet. That's going to happen in chapter 3. But she wants to be taken to his chambers. She wants to be married to him. She wants to do married things with him. Or poetically, it could be, I want to be in the inner thoughts and the inner emotions that you have. I want to be close to you in your innermost chambers. This is a beautiful picture of romantic interest. And if you're married, if you're dating, you've probably felt these things. It's a wonderful, wonderful picture. And also, this is what the other young women, the other daughters of Jerusalem want too. Remember? She just said, I'm not the only one who sees the attractive qualities in this guy. Because let's see, they say very similar things to the Shulamite in the middle of verse 4. They say, we will rejoice and be glad in you. We will celebrate your caresses more than wine. Those are the same things that the young maiden had just said about the king. So they also are fawning over the king because everything about him is attractive. And what I love about the end of verse 4, the Shulamite says, it is only right that they adore you. Your translation might say, rightly do they love you. So think about this with me. Instead of the Shulamite knowing that all these other girls are looking at this guy and they're attracted, instead of being jealous and envious and getting mad about it, she says, It's only right. I'm not the only person who sees all these good qualities. Everybody sees it. Now, I still want to be the special one. Don't get it twisted. I want to be the special one. But everybody sees the fragrant aroma of this man's life. Rightly do they love you. It's a wonderful, amazing thing for a woman to be able to say. And so with this, I want to zoom out a little bit to another principle about godly romantic interest. Godly romantic interest, when looking for a spouse, considers the scent of reputation. Considers the scent of reputation. So what is the scent of the person that you're interested in? What is the scent of their reputation? When their name is brought up, especially among those who love you and care about you the most, what is the scent of that person's name? Does it make them scrunch up their nose from the rottenness of their reputation? Or do they delight in the fragrant and pleasing smell of that person's life? A woman should be able to say that it is only right that others adore you, that others see these positive qualities in you that I see. Now, I still want to be the special one, but it's only right that everybody sees these qualities. So what that means is, especially for those who are dating or pursuing somebody, is that if he is a project, or if he needs to be fixed, or if you are settling, it's probably not wise to pursue that person. Now, on the other side of this, just the way that this is laid out, this is the woman talking about the man. So let's bring it to the young men who are dating or pursuing people. Is the essence of your character or the essence of your reputation such that when your name is brought up in a group, it brings smiles to people's face from the pleasing and delightful aroma? Or when your name is brought up, does it make people twist their nose at the rotten scent of your reputation? This is so important, especially in godly romantic interest for both sides. Your reputation and the reputation of those that you're interested in are so, so important, especially because your future home will carry into it the scent of the character that you bring into it. So the scent of character is so, so important. And if you're the only person who sees the positive in somebody, that might be a red flag that it's not wise to pursue them. Okay, this is really exciting to me. This is really good stuff from Song of Solomon. Okay, let's look at one more snapshot this morning, and let's read verses 5 through 8, please. Verses 5 through 8. Here, it's the Shulamite, the young maiden speaking. O daughters of Jerusalem, I am dark, like the tents of Kedar, yet lovely, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am dark, for the sun has gazed on me. My mother's sons were angry with me, and they made me take care of the vineyards. I've not taken care of my own vineyard. Tell me, you whom I love, where do you pasture your sheep? Where do you let them rest at noon? Why should I be like one who veils herself beside the flocks of your companions? And verse 8, I believe it's the daughters of Jerusalem, or the chorus speaking here. If you do not know, most beautiful of women, follow the tracks of the flock. Pasture your young goats near the shepherd's tents. So here, the Shulamite woman, the young woman, she addresses the daughters of Jerusalem first. Those other young women, the chorus in this song. And we see this Shulamite woman's low view of herself compared to the other daughters of Jerusalem. She says in verse 5, I'm dark like the tents of Kedar. Now those tents were likely made out of black goat hair. And then a little bit further in verse 6, she says, I'm dark because I was forced by my brothers to go outside and work in the vineyards. So she has this deep, dark tan from having been outside and having worked in the vineyards and worked in the fields. And in that time period, the lighter skin that you had, the more attractive that you were. And that just meant, oh, you don't have to go outside and work. You probably come from money. You probably are better off than we are. And so because of that, the Shulamite is self-conscious about her appearance. She looks a lot darker. She's got this deep, dark tan that these other daughters of Jerusalem, who are also attracted to the man that she's attracted to, that they just don't have. And so she's insecure about that. In verse 6, she even says, I had to work in the vineyards out in the heat. At the end of verse 6, she says, I haven't had the time or ability to take care of my own vineyard. So poetically, her own appearance, as much as these other daughters of Jerusalem had. So she's insecure about her appearance a little bit. But at the same time, at the end of verse 2, she says that she's lovely like the curtains of Solomon. And that's fascinating to me, because maybe this is just, there's some kind of physical attractiveness still, even though maybe she's not the ideal because of her dark tan that she has. But maybe she realizes that beauty is not just about what's on the outside. In verse 7, it gives us a good look at her heart. She speaks to Solomon and she longs to be around him in verse 7. She refers to him as a shepherd here. And she wants to know when he rests his flocks at noon. At the heat of the day, she wants to know where he and when he rests his flocks. Now remember, she was forced to work in the sun in the heat of the day. She's got this deep, dark tan. But she wants to know from Solomon, when are you going to rest your flock away from the sun? And I think this has got to be a poetic description of who she sees Solomon as, because Solomon wasn't a literal shepherd. His father, Solomon wasn't. He wasn't a literal shepherd. But the image of the shepherd we see not only shows up in Old Testament literature about kings, but it also shows up in love poetry of this time. They would almost give them a character that they would play because of the qualities and the characteristics of those different characters. And so here, she is praising Solomon again for his character, for his reputation, for his qualities and his characteristics. She wants to be led by Solomon like a shepherd leads his sheep. She wants the protection that a shepherd gives to his sheep. She wants that protection from her man. She wants, a shepherd would individually look over each individual sheep lovingly for any injuries. She wants that individual care and attention. And then, just specifically for the Shulamite woman, because she had to work out in the sun, she wants to know, when are you going to rest your flocks from the sun? So she wants to be rested from the sun just like a shepherd would rest the flocks. Isn't this a wonderful, beautiful picture? That's what she wants from him. It's so good. She wants rest from the sun. But also more about her character at the end of verse 7. She says, why would I be like one who veils herself beside the flocks of your companions? Now she's just asked where I can go meet Solomon. Where can I go find you? Where can we be together? But she doesn't want this meeting to happen by chance. She also wants to make sure that the optics of how they meet look good to other people. Because if she were a woman who veiled herself and went wandering around in a field, in that time period, you would look like a loose woman. You would look like a prostitute. Now, if you think about in Genesis, Tamar, who veiled herself to look like a prostitute, that's what she's saying. I don't want to do that. I want the optics to be pure. I want to be near you. I want you to be my shepherd, but I also want to be pure. And I want it to look pure because I want it to be pure. So her character is so beautiful here in these verses. She has a longing for him. She wants him to be her shepherd, and she wants to be pure. She wants everything to look and be right. Oh, I love that. So in verse 8 here, your translation, it could be the man speaking here. It really could. I think it's the daughters of Jerusalem, just because they are the only group that uses the phrase most beautiful among women. If you want to look at chapter 5, verse 9, and chapter 6, verse 1, they're the only ones in the song who use that phrase. And if they are the ones speaking here, then they're sort of sarcastically telling her, go follow the tracks of the field. Go pasture your female goats around the shepherd's tents. Did you notice the plural there? Yeah, go take your flock to the shepherd's tents. But that's the very wandering and being around Solomon's companions that she just said, I don't want to do. Because that might make her look like a prostitute, might make her look like a loose woman. She wants to look pure, she wants to be pure. And so if this is the daughters of Jerusalem talking here, not only do they maybe have a little puffed up view of themselves because they're not deeply tanned like she is, but now they're saying, yeah, you just go after them. Go next to the shepherd's tents. Just go ahead. And she's being particular about looking pure and being pure. And so as we look at the Shulamite here, her character was such that the way she wanted everything to be done as she pursued Solomon, she wanted to look pure and to be pure. And so that brings us to the last point about godly romantic interest that I want to bring out of this text this morning. Godly romantic interest is not just based on physical attraction or physical appearance, but on character and integrity. And specifically, godly romantic interest pursues with purity. Pursues with purity. And we see the Shulamite doing that, being very concerned with purity. It's very easy for us to allow our insecurities to shape the way that we interact with other people, just in general. But how much more in romantic interest? I'm really insecure in this area, so I'm going to be with this person who makes me feel really secure in that area. Or I'm going to do these certain things, even though I'm really insecure about it, just to please the one that I'm interested in. But we see the Shulamite woman here sticking to her guns, sticking to her character, sticking to her integrity because she wanted everything to look pure and to be pure. And that is so beautiful. And even more beautiful, she might not have had the ideal look at this time period because of her deep, dark tan from working out in the fields, but she had something so much more beautiful than just what's on the outside. And by the way, as we get further into it, we're going to find that the man finds her extremely physically attractive. So it's not just about that either. But the pursuing with purity is so, so important. And so a lesson for those who are pursuing romantic relationships or pursuing those that you have interested in, keep it pure. And don't just keep it pure, but keep it looking pure. Avoid compromising situations, avoid things that look bad, and also avoid anything that leaves the door open for sin. The example we see of the Shulamite is she wanted him. I mean, she came right out, oh, that he would kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, right? She wanted him, and she wanted purity, and she had both. And she was all the more beautiful because of it. Okay, that's where we're going to stop in Song of Solomon. Song of Songs. Can you see why I'm excited about it? Isn't this an amazing, beautiful, poetic description of so many things that so many of us in the room have experienced, and we've gone through it, and it's just a wonderful thing. And so I hope that this will be edifying and encouraging and helpful as we're building godly families and glorifying to God. Now, as we get ready to close, by way of analogy, I want to connect this to Jesus, because we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Jesus this morning. The way that the Shulamite pursues Solomon is very similar to the way that we should be pursuing Jesus. Do we long for Jesus as much as the Shulamite longed for her king? Or are we just okay where we are? Is the name of Jesus a fragrant aroma that is a delight to us? Or do we scrunch up our nose at Jesus and the things that Jesus stands for? Are we putting on the pleasing aroma of Christ and showing it to other people? Or is the scent of our reputation exactly the same as it's been for years and years and years? Do we care about purity as we pursue our Lord? Or do we only care about our own pleasure? Or the very last ones here, do we let Jesus shepherd us? He's the chief shepherd, whether we accept it or not, but do we let him lead us? Do we submit to his rule? Or is it only on our terms? So not in a romantic sense as in Song of Songs, but we need to be longing for and pursuing our relationship with Jesus every day with as much passion, with as much purity as the Shulamite woman does for her king. And so as we close this morning, if you want to study the scriptures about Jesus and pursue him, we would love to do that with you. Or if you know that you need to repent of your sins, you need to be washed in his blood and be forgiven of your sins and join that covenant relationship with him, we'd love to do that with you. Or if you need the prayers of the congregation or there's some other need that we can help you with this morning, there's an opportunity now while together we stand and while we sing.